Hi, this is Joe again with another review. And for us, in this video, we'll be discussing, we'll continue to discuss the Rocky movie series. The last video I did, of course, I discussed the first movie. Now I'm going to discuss the first, about like 10,000 Rocky sequels. Or at least it feels that way. Starting, of course, with Rocky 2. This came out in 1979, and this was the first movie that was directed by Sylvester Stallone. Well, all the movies were written by Stallone, except for except for the Creed movie, which came out a couple of years ago. But this was the first Rocky film that was written and directed by Stallone, and I think it also might have been the first movie that Stallone directed. Of course, this movie kind of ticked off a lot of people at United Artists, which produced had a distribution deal to release the Rocky films, and they produced the films. That were kind of ticked off as Stallone because Rocky 2 is almost exactly the same thing as the first movie, with a few variations, of course, because it picked up right where the first one left off. That's what's unique for movie sequels. Because you can name just about any movie series there is, except for the possible exception of Star Trek, where the sequel picked up from when the last movie ended, which is rare for sequels. The only other, except other than Star Trek, I'm talking about Star Trek 2, 3, and 4, and the middle three movies with the original cast. Like Star Trek 3 picked up when 2 left off, and Star Trek 4 picked up when 3 left off. And also you can say the same thing for the Karate Kid movies. They did the same thing. And they picked up from where the last one left off. And most movie series, like the James Bond series, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, or the Dirty Harry movies, James Bond, you can name any movie series you want, they don't pick up from where the last one left off. Because they always think, oh, this will be the last one. So with the Rocky movies, it had the same deal. The original movie was supposed to be like a one-shot deal, and it became such a big hit and won the Oscar for Best Picture. So Stallone figured, okay, let's do a sequel since they have this successful movie now. And United Artists at first was hesitant because naturally most sequels in those days bomb out, which is true for the most part. And the movie series tend to get worse as the more movies come out, the worse the movies get. And of course, Rocky is no exception, which I'm going to get to in later films. But for Rocky 2, we picked up right where the fight ended. As a matter of fact, it's also very rare movies, and the Rocky series is the only series that has done that, where they show what happened from the fight before, how the last movie, or the original film, it shows like the last round and a half of the fight, of the original fight between Rocky and Apollo. It showed what happened at the end of the fight, the second half of the 14th round, and of course the full 15th round. And Apollo says, "Oh, there ain't gonna be no rematch." And Apollo says, and of course Rocky says, "I don't want one." And of course, the scene where when Adrian and Rocky hug each other and they told each other they love them. Well, they loved each other at the end of the film. Well, Rocky 2 picks up right when the fight ended, when Apollo and Rocky were both sent to the hospital because of their injuries during the fight. Because Rocky hit Apollo so hard, he got busted ribs. And of course, with all the damage to Rocky's face, his eye, his bat was severely damaged in the fight. His right eye, which is not really that protected that well during the fight, so he had to have an eye operation. He had his nose was broken and all that, all damage to his face. His face was all bandaged up. And of course, when Rocky finally gets released from the hospital, but he did have the one moment with Apollo, and Rocky says so. And there was really the first scene where the two of them were not, or when Apollo wasn't really mean to Rocky, trying to goal him and stuff like that. Rocky asked him, "Did you give me your best?" Because there was an issue in the first movie. He doesn't want to take his best for 15 rounds and stuff, and lasted 15 rounds with Apollo. And Apollo says, "Yeah, I gave you my best." He says, "Thank you," and that was it. It was the only time, at least in the first two films, that Apollo was nice to Rocky, in a way. So when Rocky finally gets released from the hospital, he proposes to Adrian, and they quickly get married. And of course, they also quickly find out that Adrian was actually pregnant. So of course, Rocky had to marry Adrian, even though he loves her. He felt he only had to marry her because he knocked her up. Well, all that stuff was going on, and Rocky goes on a big spending spree, buys watches, buys new clothes, buys a new car, but gets a new house with all the money that he made off the first fight. Well, all that stuff was going on with Rocky. Apollo was getting a lot of crap and a lot of heat because a lot of people thought that he had the fight fixed. Because technically, there was no way in the world that Rocky should have lasted that long in the fight against Apollo, because he had like a million. It was literally a 1,000,000 to 1 shot to even beat Apollo, and he ended up lasting the 15 rounds. He was the only fighter that Apollo ever fought up to that time that went the distance with him. So he's a little bit. So even though Apollo said he was originally not going to give him a rematch, his pride gets bent out of shape because he, went the distance with Rocky, and which is no way possible for him to last that long, but he did. And Apollo was getting a lot of hate mail, and this was the scene when, if you see my movie review for the movie Creed, this was the moment where you see Apollo's actual kids and his wife in the film. Not his real life kid, not Carl Weathers' real life kids, but Apollo's kids in that film. And one of those two kids should have been the fighter in the movie Creed. Right? On his wife, I don't know if the actress is still alive today, I don't know, or the time they did Creed, but they should have brought back that actress to do the Creed movie instead of Phylicia Rashad. No knocking Phylicia Rashad here. But that was one of the two kids they should use in the Creed movie, in my opinion. But in that scene when he's reading the hate mail, I was going to say email, but when I said hate mail, blacks were saying you're a disgrace to the colored people. You're a disgrace to the colored people. You should go kill yourself. You carry this bump for 15 rounds, and all this stuff. So he decides to go for a rematch against Rocky. And so his trainer was played by Tony Byrne, who was for the first 6 films, was the only actor to be in the first 6 films. He does not want Apollo to go fight Rocky again. He was the only one of his advisors that said no. And Apollo says, "How come?" Because he says, you beat that man more than I saw anybody get beat before. He kept coming after you. We don't need, because I feel if you fight him again, he's going to beat you. This time we have more time to train against you. Instead of 5 weeks, like in the first fight, he will beat you. When he didn't say in those words, he's going to beat you. But I felt like you beat him, like you never seen anybody get beat before, and he kept coming. And we don't want him. I said, I don't want you to fight him because it's going to get you. He could possibly beat you if you fight him again. And meanwhile, Apollo didn't care, and he wanted a rematch with Rocky to prove to the world that Rocky wasn't a freak the first time they fought. So, but Rocky didn't want to do it, and retired. And the problem was that he tried to get other jobs, work in the meat factory, trying to get an interview with the next job, and he even tried to do commercials. He couldn't do the commercials because he couldn't read. He couldn't read properly. So Adrian is teaching him how to read, and he's trying to get a regular job, couldn't do it, and he gets fired from the meat packing place that Paulie worked at before in the first film, and he said the only thing he could do is box, and he decides to work with Mickey at the gym. Mickey gave him a job because he noticed he couldn't do it. He did an eye test with Mickey. Mickey did an eye test with Rocky, and he said he couldn't see out of his right eye. And said Creed will crash in on you. Then, of course, Apollo tries to goad him, and the goading works, so he decides to go ahead and fight anyway, and because Mickey got mad, because he was a lucky bum, a lucky club fighter to go the distance with me, he's not going to do it. So Mickey gets mad as well, because it's like taking it out on him, as well as Rocky. So they agreed to do the rematch, and they did. And of course, during this whole time, Adrian was pregnant. Like I said earlier, she was pregnant, and she gave birth because she was like overworked working in the pet shop, and she went into a coma. And so instead of training, Rocky was with Adrian the whole time, and Mickey is trying to say, look, you have to train and not be here. As I understand that, I'm sorry about what happened with Adrian, I'm sorry what you're going through, but we have to concentrate on the fight. And so what did you do? You give your family obligations, or to be here with your sick wife who could die in any minute to go fight Apollo, who would kill you in the ring. So, but Mickey decides to stay with Rocky, with Adrian and everything, and then because Rocky wasn't giving his 100% during the training, because Adrian didn't exactly approve, because he figured that he would go blind because of his bad eye. Well, after, of course, obviously, I think originally Adrian was supposed to die in this movie, from what I understand, but Stallone says, okay, I'm not going to kill her off. She gets out of the coma and she goes, win. And there's one thing I want you to do for me. So what? Win the match. He says, okay, great. And then you have the big training montage where he's running through Philly, going through Independence Hall, jumping over the benches, and of course running up the famous steps of the Art Museum there in Philly. It's become like, I think it was already a landmark before, but it became more of a landmark. It became a whole huge deal. And I think the people at the museum are ticked off because over the years since then, since 1976 when the movie came out, people have been constantly running up and down the steps of the art museum but not going into the museum because they want to imitate Rocky films, especially when they're first coming out, or when they first came out, I should say. Of course, you had the big fight. Which, of course, I'm going to give it away anyway. Rocky does win this match. Of course, which kind of became a joke in the Rocky movies, that Rocky always wins. Always had to win the match at the end of the film. Well, he didn't win the match in the first film. A lot of people thought that he won the match in the first movie. He didn't. This was the first movie where he wins the match at the end of the movie. And of course, they had to make it a little more dramatic or over the top. Both fighters knocked themselves down and they had to beat each other up. Who would get up first? And of course, Rocky beat Apollo first, to get up on his feet first, I should say. And of course, Rocky ends up winning the title at the end of the film. And that's pretty much how it ended. And now, of course, unlike the first film, where Adrian was sharing the moment with Rocky in the ring, this time she didn't. The reason why it was written out that way is because Tyler Shire, who played Adrian throughout the course of all the films, she was doing it on a project, so she had to film her scenes early, on an earlier time, and couldn't be in the ring or in the arena with Rocky like she did in all the other films. So that's why she's in the house and watching the fight on TV with Paulie. Not only that, but of course in the film she gave birth to the kid and just got out of a coma and was in the house. So they kind of used that as an excuse as to why Adrian was in the house. But the actual reason was that Tyler Shire was doing a project. So they filmed her scenes first, and then of course have her watch the fight on TV. That's how they did it that way. But of course this movie was a pretty good follow-up to the first film. And like I said earlier, it was like an exact copy of the first movie. So I got a lot of criticism for it. It's like almost exactly the same as the first one. But to the film, of course, I liked the film. This was the first Rocky film I saw in the movie theaters. Actually, it was the second one. And of course, we always like my mother always used to point out to me, like I said in the first review, where Rocky was running from in the section of Philly was running in the movies in Philly. So it was always a piece of nostalgia for me. And this movie is almost 40 years old already, believe it or not, the second one. Of course, the next one is going to be the third one, and that's going to be hopefully my next review. This is my review, of course, signing off in this review for Rocky 2. Please click on the video, please rate it, feel free to comment on it. Please subscribe to my channel, and please forward this video to your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews not only on my YouTube channel, but rowdyc.com, that's all WDY, C.com, that's all page and Rowdy Reviewer, Chris Lee Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.